It's books. She gives away all kinds of things. Even one time I called it. Hello, I got the answer. She said she ain't recognized Brother Leroy. Hello, I got the answer. It's just so and so and so and so. Yeah, you won. I said, okay. Where can I pick them up? And she told me all that information. Boy, I got some freebies. So if you don't want to call in on the Flo Wiley show and get some freebies when she offers them there, Brother Leroy is right in the wing. And ladies and gentlemen, we're very happy to have in studio. Whoa, I got me a lineup up in here. I asked for one. I asked for the slam dunk. I got the slam dunk, the follow up, the steal, and everything else. I said, Lord have mercy, these brothers up in this. I said, wait a minute. I said, we doing an interview. The brother said, yeah, okay, I'm gonna be ready for you. We're gonna do up a panel in here. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't even say online. I'm so shocked by having some guests in studio. I'm always interviewing people long distance. That we have some brothers in studio who are very familiar with to some of you in the audience, and for those of you who are not, I'll just tell a quick story. The brother had a sports show here on he and some other brothers. And let me see, I got the fifth answer up in here. It's the 17th answer. He only come out with brother. He said, I'm only doing this for Brother Leroy. Anybody else, I'm not doing it. He's so articulate and literate, but he makes me stumble over words, just saying hello. But here's the bottom line, that I'm going by this office one day, and this brother Doug, he said, hey, man, come on in here, see what we doing. So I go and I see all these things, man. You see these things that I look at as being videotape players, but they weren't. That's my level of understanding. So I'm thinking that this brother is doing bootleg videos and stuff, but it wasn't that. They have a whole company that does wiring in developments, homes and so-called private buildings and project buildings. And they've been doing this for years, for many, many years, and they are from the community. I invited them on today because in seeing a sad story about this grandmother being killed up in the Bronx, and the city council, as a result, allocating, in my memory, $10 million for setting up security cameras in the building, and it's a public housing building, I immediately said, well, look, maybe this is a situation where Doug and Stuart and their company will be able to take advantage of providing work for themselves and the young people that they've trained. And so they're here today to tell us what, if any, headway they have made, even with this sad story with the grandmother being killed, but the city council allocating these monies. So I want to thank you for joining us, Brother Doug and Stu, and my brother, the 15th answer, and my other brother. I remember interviewing you before, but I forgot your name.
John Johnson.
John Johnson. Oh, yeah, you're the tenant. Wait a minute. Let me see what I got on my mics up here. Repeat that.
John Johnson.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn on all the mics.
There you go.
Okay.
Can't go wrong.
That way. John Johnson. And Doug, introduce everyone in your company, the inception of your company.
Okay, well, Brother Leroy, what I want to really quickly say that our group has been certified by the Treasury Department as a community development organization, and we're very proud of that. And when you get certified by the Treasury to do that, you're being asked by the Treasury Department, the government, to go into low-income communities, find low-income opportunities, and the government gives you tax credits to put the money in the low-income communities. So after our years of learning that in this society, you're not permitted to succeed if you are of color, that's just our 25-year opinion, we partnered up with Mr. John Johnson, who's here with us, who is the COP chair of the South Bronx, and there's about five people like John in the New York City housing system. There's only 5 like him, and he runs 27 developments. And where there are 27 presidents, and those presidents elected him as their president. So we brought them along because we partnered with them to try to empower the community. Because in our humble estimation, cameras are nice, and we put a lot of them in with Mr. Johnson. We've been doing this for over 4 years with him and his group. We don't think cameras are a answer to the real problem. Mm-hmm. You know, there's crime out there, and we have a lot of young people with no hope. So with us is my partner, 25-year partner, Stu Reed here. And of course, since you mentioned our days here as a broadcaster, the voice of clarity. Clarity, you want to say hello to the people since we're back in some of our humble beginnings?
I'd like to say hello to Brother Leroy, of course, and I'm glad that I was not prevented from prospering by my last experience with Doug and Stu and the broadcast system here. We've gone on to get involved in a lot of community issues other than community radio, and I have to say it was because of access and exposure on the sports show.
Excellent.
And of course, John
Johnson.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. John Johnson. I am a longtime resident of public housing, the Tenant Association president for Mont Haven Houses in the Bronx, the chairperson, like Doug said, for 34 developments in the South Bronx, representing over 52,000 residents.
Hmm. And what has been your experience with working with Doug? What has been facilitated or made your job easier?
I initially met them at a meeting at Sobro, and I explained to them if I ever had the opportunity to meet up with them and do business with them, that I would take advantage of that. Unfortunately, an 86-year-old lady had gotten robbed in my development. I reached out to Doug and Stu. They came expeditiously, installed some cameras for the safety of the residents there. And since then, it's been very harmonious, to say the least.
Talk about that camera setup.
Well, we are one of the few developments in the South Bronx to have a camera set up for the safety and security of the residents. That gives the residents the opportunity to view the cameras from their cell phones, from their tablets, from their laptops, or home. What it does for some of the residents is, one of the young ladies that lives in the building, when her kids goes to school in the morning, she watches the cameras to make sure that her kids exit the building safely.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
on her TV, on her internet, on her...
Yes, on her internet, yes.
Okay.
On her computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of other residents, mostly females, when they come home late at night, they put the cameras on their smartphone to make sure that the lobby is clear, the lobby is safe. If the lobby is not safe, they will either wait until the lobby is clear, or they will call for someone to come downstairs so they can gain entry into the building safely.
This is, how long ago was this? 4 years ago?
This was about three and a half years ago.
This is advanced.
Yes.
I'm a consumer, so anything... I mean, if you show me a cell phone, that's advanced. You understand?
You're not kidding.
I told her, say, why don't you empty your voicemail? I said, when I learn to, I will. but the point I'm going after, that is advanced.
Yes.
That's way in advance.
Yes.
And when I say advance, people out there would be saying, well, dang, how can I get that?
Exactly. A lot of times when I go to conferences throughout the country, I make sure we go to a lot of conferences dealing with residents of public housing throughout the country. Every opportunity I get, I kind of show off, letting them know this is technology that's available to them for the safety of their developments, whatever state they might live in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are very interested in this technology, very interested.
Now, Doug and Stu's company has gained publicity or exposure in very technical journals and even in some of the local newspapers here. The question is that after that kind of installation in the particular housing development that you are where you live,
right?
That's the Mont Haven.
Yes.
Okay. Other people had to have said, how can I get that in our building?
Yes, there's been some stagnation on NYCHA's behalf. They said
NYCHA being
New York City Housing Authority. They said there's some liability issues, but they have yet to tell me definitively what these liability issues are. I'm still waiting for an answer from 3 years ago. Initially, they wanted to take the cameras out and then charge the company for removal of the cameras. I happened to be at an event at Gracie Mansion, and the mayor saw it, and when he saw it, he said, "What is this?" I said, "It's one of the developments streaming live right now." He said
On you
on
showed
my
him.
cell phone, yes. And he said this needs to be in every NYCHA development.
There's
Subsequently, they left me alone after that.
There's a picture of that on John's website, of the mayor looking at John, just in case people didn't. And by the way, he has a website, BS Bronx South
District, BSDCOP.org.
.org, where you go to that website and you'll see all of his cameras. And in fact, we did maybe 8 or 9 of his developments, because as time went on, one place, a young boy was murdered Friday afternoon in the elevator, and one of John's presidents called Stu and I up and said, the housing authority said they didn't have any money to do anything about it. And we went and talked to the tenant president and to the young fella's mother. And the next day we installed the cameras. Even though while we were installing the cameras, somebody came from downtown in NYCHA and said that, we shouldn't be doing that.
Okay. The once again, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, the reason I've invited them on is because we've had prior conversations with them regarding gaining contracts, gaining dollars that subsequently would feed their company. But what is unique that Doug said at the very beginning is that even before being designated by the Treasury Department as a
CD, community development
entity, that you have been training young people in the work that you're doing,
Correct.
making them capable of being
Correct.
independent or going and working with Warner and the
Time
other
Warner and Cablevision. Right. We actually, through SOBRO, we got a grant about 5 years ago. We got a grant. And that's how we've been kind of sustaining ourselves. We got a grant from the United States Department of Health. Gave us a grant to put together a construction telecommunications construction company utilizing young people, which we did. And what we found out was you couldn't get any work. We weren't able, in fact, SOBRO had Con Ed on his board, and we couldn't even get $1 worth of work from Con Ed. No one wanted to hire. As I said earlier, you're not, I've come to the conclusion that you're not allowed to succeed. And no one, even with the government putting up the money, we couldn't get any contracts or any work from anyone. And we realized that empowerment was very important in the community, because without empowerment, what you're going to have is a lot of young people. And you had an earlier guest on who said most people, young teenagers' brains don't develop till they're 22. Well, in most of neighborhoods that John serviced and that, some of we've come from, by the time you're 22, you usually already been to prison and out on parole for your brain even developed. Mm-hmm. That's what happened to me. Mm-hmm. So personally, that's what happened to me personally. By the time I was 21 years old, I'd already been to prison, was out walking on Lenox Avenue on parole. And, so they don't look for ways to empower our people and solve the problem. These kids have no hope. And when you look at the paper yesterday, they called the projects crime-ridden places. So we have been cast as black people as the criminals. And once you're cast as the criminals and you accept that, then they don't have to do anything economically to you except for get on TV and ask you, why don't you support their efforts to suppress crime, but not fix the problem? Why
don't you support their efforts to suppress you?
Well, you had Kelly on TV talking about he wanted the leaders to get up and talk about crime, but his same police force chased a guy into his house and killed him in front of his grandmother. That's a fact.
Ramali.
Yes, but here he is on TV asking the black leaders to step up and talk about guns, and we all know that there's not one black company in the world that has a gun. So we're not getting the guns from each other.
Now there are two.
So let's get real here.
There are at least two reasons why we have you here. One is there's multiple reasons. There's more than two. Multiple reasons. One, to alert the audience to the fact that we have a very capable technical group of individuals from the community, and that they exist. That's number one. Two, that they train young people or other people who are considered cast-offs in the society.
Correct.
That they have successfully serviced at least a few buildings within more than a few within New York City Housing Authority, plus other private developments.
That's right.
In advanced technology, whereas I'm in my house I'm on the 18th floor, I can look at my smartphone or I can look at my internet, my PC, and I can see what's going on in the lobby and in the elevators.
That's right. Not the elevators.
Go ahead.
Not the elevators, but in the lobbies and on the front doors of the building. If you go to John's site, you'll see 9 or 10 different developments where we've been able to do these things. And the striking thing about it, when you watch them, you'll see those are just regular people. You don't see the crime written that they're talking about. You see regular people who look like everybody else going. Every morning you see a stream of people going to work. You see a stream of people coming in, just regular people.
And another reason is that we want to talk about the amount of money that flows through New York City.
Wow.
That if it were a portion, a small portion of that money, and we're not begging, we're talking about how they tell us if you get qualified, our parents told us, if you get qualified, you can make it in this world and in the U.S. We're talking about how if a small portion of these dollars were approved, not as affirmative action, but in terms of competition based on competency, to this black firm and others like it, that it would mean an increase in of employment for many more young people, training, interns, etc. Young people in your block who you see are not doing anything but who have very, very, very capable minds. So let's talk about let's talk to the John Lew's study in terms of the significance of that, because that was brought to me by Doug and yourself. The significance of that study is called the web study.
He has a website.
I'm sorry.
He has a website called MWBE Report Card NYC.com.
Right. Talk about the significance when you saw the compilation of facts and figures. What did that told you something you already knew?
Yeah, but it's astounding to see it in black and white. Basically, John Lew's study shows that there's some $18 billion spent annually by the city in purchasing outside services. This is not to pay city employees, but to buy services from outside vendors, outside of the city itself. $18 billion annually. Less than 1% of that goes to
Less than 1%
goes to minorities.
Less than 1%. Less than 1%. Okay. The $10 million allocated, I think it was $10 or $13 million allocated by the city council for that housing development up in the Bronx. They just approved it this week.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What does that mean to your company?
Virtually nothing from where we sit. I'm just to say it like it is. There seems to be a very closed system right now as to how they spend that money. Going back about 3 years, we tried to get involved in the New York City Housing Authority RFP process for installation of these security cameras that you're talking about, Brother Leroy. And as we applied for the round, they told us shortly after we applied that they were pulling the RFP because there was no money available. Well, we never heard anything until about a year later. We were downtown meeting on a related but not the same issue.
Yeah.
And it inadvertently...
Taking the cameras out that they wanted us to take the cameras out that John put in.
Right. And they inadvertently mentioned that they didn't want what we were doing to interfere with their RFP vendors that were putting in cameras. And we said, what RFP vendors that are putting in cameras? And it turns out they had resubmitted the RFP, had not informed us, and had awarded it to the same old group of guys that had been getting these contracts for years. As part of this process, before they had pulled this RFP, I went to a bidders conference held at one of the Housing Authority buildings, and there were about 75 people there, and there were 2 other people that looked like me. When I say looked like me, were brown of skin. Otherwise, they were all European, a lot of Eastern European, but essentially lily-white contractors that were walking around talking about how they're going to share this pot of money. So essentially, the Housing Authority has a system set up to supposedly bid this out on a fair basis, but for whatever reason, they have figured out a way to exclude folks that look like us.
So the reason that I think that, from what has been obvious to me, is that they ask all of the women and blacks and Latinos to become certified, and they don't ask the white men to be. This is the truth. They don't. None of the white men are asked to be certified, and then when they give out the money, 99% of it go to the people who aren't certified. So when they asked us to be certified, the professor has a famous saying, so maybe you want to pick it up.
Yes. Before we do that, we're going to go to station identification. This is the communicators, and our guests in studio are members of Urban Tech and Tenant Association at the New York City Housing Authority. And you're listening to
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Your observations, we're in these situations, but there's an analysis of what's going on based on history.
Well, it appears that we're trying to recreate the past here with this stop and frisk. We've reached a point where many people are afraid of young men, but in particular, young black men, young Hispanic men who hang in communities where young black men hang. And the reason being was the same reason that you wanted to kill off all the aggressive slaves during the slave period. That is, you thought you'd make everybody else docile. And when you have a situation with stop and frisk, with money going only to certain select companies that represent maybe 98% of a given tax revenues for a given year, that is a type of control that only the most authoritarian, the most liberty-taking governments really seek to impose. We see it today with Palestine and the Israelis. We see it in Israel itself, where they search and stop everybody going to any mass transit or airport. We saw it in this country, in the South, when the Irish were hired in particular to be the slave patrol masters, questioning, searching, stopping, returning slaves to their plantation. And now you look at a New York City Housing Authority project in 2012, and men, women, and children are coming out of their building and having the government, the British troops, the Nazis, stopping them and asking them, who are you, where are you from, and oh, you're a threat to me and my group. This is about group threats, and they're trying, without the court speaking as to the constitutionality of these, what I deem to be illegal stops, illegal restrictions on the right of African Americans and others to bear arms in this country in a reasonable way. They're using that to psychologically as well as actually put controls of the type that we haven't seen since the Nazis, since Uganda in many ways, wherever men feel that others can be picked up, stopped, and in the most extreme example, shot right there. That's what this is about, because under the Constitution, our courts, I say our, the U.S. courts, have not spoken. We have had some federal judges who have permitted class action lawsuits to move forward. In my mind, as a Columbia Law School graduate, who took constitutional law with Attorney General Eric Holder, by the way, in my mind, these are illegal. Well, it's because these are people who have a voice in our legal rights as a group. Eric Holder, the president, the mayor, and others have a voice in my right not to be bought and sold by white people, Irish people, taller African-American people, shorter Hispanic people, or cops, not to be bothered at all, not in this country at this time. So that's what this is. It's an ideological fight, even though it's being played out in politics, it's being played out in John's environment, in NYCHA houses, it's being played out down with the Wall Street protests. It's being played out in a lot of ways, but it's very similar to what the Egyptian army would like to do to their young people. It's very similar to what the Libyans would like to do to their young males. And these whites have done it.
Okay, tying that in with the very efficient denial of contracts to urban tech. Tie that in. How?
It's not just urban tech. They don't give out, Stu's right, they don't give out any contracts to anybody of color. If you have $17 billion and 99% of it goes to one group of people, they're not denying you. You're just not getting it. So one of the solutions we've had is getting with John and coming up and forming a tenant empowered tenant business owned and run by John. Mm-hmm. And because John, you can talk about the HUD regulations.
Yeah, I want to speak to that too, pertaining to, first of all, 1994, Rudolph Giuliani signed the MOU into law with no expiration date.
MOU.
Memorandum of Understanding. With no expiration date when he merged the police department. Thereafter, a percentage of the operating funds that come from the federal government, being HUD, that goes to New York City Housing Authority, a portion of that money is taken out and given to NYPD every year. You can't quantify the exact dollar amount because it purchases new vehicles, pays for the maintenance of the vehicles for the life of the vehicle, and the insurance of the vehicle for the life of the vehicle. And it clearly states in the MOU that NYCHA residents, being New York City Housing Authority, are supposed to get above baseline services, and we are not receiving that. A lot of times when you have residents that sit out on tenant patrol, which is resident watch now, and they call for a car to come by, oh, well, we don't have the manpower, but we're paying for this in excess of $100 million a year. And they talk about they have a $50 million budget deficit every year. Take the money back away from NYPD. As far as I'm concerned, we might be the only residents in the United States paying for police services twice, taxpayer dollars and out of the operating funds.
Well, you're the only residents, and you're the only, the housing authority is the only residential landlord in New York City that pays for police protection.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yes.
They're the only ones that do that. So what we tried to do with John was start a business with the tenants, because the HUD regulations, which is Section 3 of the HUD regulations, states that the housing authority, which is mostly funded by federal government, has to give some of the money to residential and encourage residential business, which they don't do in any significant manner at this particular time. So what we decided was we didn't want to come and complain and cry about the obvious that they don't give out contracts. What we did was try to work with Mr. Johnson to come up with a tenant-owned business that does these cameras, that teaches these people, that takes advantage of our collective expertise, and the money and the things that come from it would go to the actual residents that live in the developments. So at some point, people will stop saying, seeing things in the paper that says crime-ridden projects. A lot of those people that live in the project are decent, normal people, but they don't portray that way. We're as the guy from the Schaumburg, Khalil Muhammad, as he said, we have historically been portrayed as criminals, and as long as they are portraying us as criminals, then they're happy. They want our people to be the people in the projects to be happy that they're getting a camera, and the money, the $10 million that you talked about, like Stu said, is going to the landlord and the police. It's not going to the community, not going to John Johnson. John Johnson has helped to raise quite a bit of money for his residents, but none of that money has been able to trickle down to the actual residents. The money for these kinds of initiatives, like cameras and all that, all go to the people that Stu talked about. None of it goes to any of the residents. And if you're not going to start putting some money in the pockets of the people that live there, then you're going to have a problem, because they make it seem like these young people are standing around shooting guns, wantonly shooting guns. They're doing this very simply. They're doing it because they have no hope, and every crumb matters. They're willing to die for a crumb. And we, as elders and black people, we have nothing to offer them because we're not allowed to participate in the economic system. That's why we've worked with John to try to find a solution to work to help people to become a part of the system, to become a part of doing things to help enhance and empower their community.
And if I might interject, Doug, it really was a great service that Comptroller Liu did for a lot of minority groups, whether you're involved in contract processes or not. because for the very first time, I know from information and from contacts that there were, quote, we'll use the phrase, ordinary citizens who were able to look at that report, hear your show, and they were able to kind of start asking the right questions as to why. And not only in technology, the nice thing about Control or Lose report is that it focused on the under-involvement in a number of different areas.
And folks, you can join in this literary brother,
Hayward Dotson,
has me stumbling as usual. God bless you. Thank you for your call. You're on the Black Hair.
Good afternoon, Mr. Leroy, Lamar Renee.
Hey, God bless you, sis.
And to you and to your guest, I have certain questions that I'd like to ask.
Please.
But may I very quickly say I'm very much concerned to hear grown black men some always say that the youth have no hope. The youth are guided by adults, and if the adults are not guiding them properly, then they will go to the wrong path, which many of our youth have done. But that aside, how have the surveillance cameras curtailed the crime in the projects and identified the youth who are armed and who are selling drugs? Because a lot of that is going on, and they're actually terrorizing the tenants and those who live around the projects. And secondly, since one gentleman is from the Bronx, what are the politicians and the men doing in the Bronx and Brooklyn, where this chaos seems to be dispersing and affecting the normalcy of this city? Because this wasn't going on before.
Okay. All right. 2 questions, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you,
you.
ma'am. God bless you.
The same.
I'd like to answer one of the questions. You referred to the Bronx. What are the local politicians doing? The local politicians, first of all, in my area, have stepped up as far as programs, things of that nature. You have to understand something also. You are only being told what you want to be told by the media. And if the media is giving you one picture, one way, one dimension, and you're not getting the full aspect of what's really going on. I lived in the development since 1970. I've seen the good times. I've seen the bad times. I've seen it all. I know what I'm doing personally to make my community a better community, a safer community. And I'm taking the responsibility to have other people step up and make their communities better and safer communities also. What the cameras have done, the cameras have cut down crime tremendously where the cameras are at. There's reports that's done by NYPD and all kind of specialists and professionals stating that just because you have cameras doesn't mean crime goes away 100%. What happened, though, with the cameras being installed, crime has gone down tremendously. Drug sales have gone down tremendously. Petty crime has gone down tremendously. Vandalism of the development has gone down tremendously. So we are seeing an effect with the cameras being installed.
John, is that partly because in the places that we've done this with you, that the cameras are actually owned and controlled by the residents and not the police? Because, where now instead of the being a reactionary thing where you commit a crime, where somebody commits a crime and you go to the cops and then they go look to see what happens in the video. Now your grandmother and everybody that knows you, even knows what sneakers you wear, are watching you.
Exactly. One of the things I had hoped for with the installation of these cameras is nosy neighbors. I want somebody to sit there all day long watching these cameras. And if there's a crime that's being committed, they can call from the privacy of their home. They can call a police department to make the community better. If a potential criminal comes into my development and they know that potentially everybody that lives in that building is watching them, they are going to go somewhere else. I guarantee you that.
Can I answer the second part of her question?
Well, Doug, before you do that, Brother Leroy, your audience should know, when you go into the NYCHA buildings where our program for the tenants has been installed, you may see also the police camera system as a parallel system. But you will also see a very famous sign that's been developed in the last 2 years about "We are watching us." And it's posted right outside the elevator, and you'd be surprised the reaction of the residents as well as the police who come in on patrol, who don't quite understand who the we are.
Yes.
But as John points out, is the tenants groups as independent operators, and they do not permit the police or Brother Leroy or myself to have access to their property, which is the film and the recordings in this situation, unless they're disposed to help the police and help the neighbors reduce vandalism and stop crime.
I want to just answer the other part of her question. When she put the onus and said that the black men should be doing something, the parents should be doing something. We are doing something, and that's why we're spreading the information about the taxpayer dollars. That's our money, and how our money is being spent. And those young people that you see out there, they deserve to have an economic opportunity. And what you see is, if Stu's right, and he didn't really get into it, but what you start to realize when there's $18 billion spent of taxpayers' money every year, and we're not a part of it, it's very hard to actually be a person who has a job, and you're going to be able to help the community. Who's going to help these kids with their parents now? It's got to be people who are like us, and she's right about that part. But you have to be part of the economic system, and right now we're not.
Thank you for your call. God bless you on the air.
Yes, God bless you, Brother Leroy, and God bless you to your guests. I just have a quick question. With what's going on, I wonder why is it that your company haven't been able to sue the city in regards to the neglect of water and contracts to minorities?
Well,
I mean, shouldn't that be something that y'all should pursue?
Okay. Thank you for your call, brother.
Well, I remember that voice from when we were here on the station, so I want to say hi to him. Here's our position is that we don't want to be crybabies about what they do. They set the policy. The politicians that run the city, they are the ones that should get up and say, wait a minute, there's not any equity. They get on. I heard Robert Jackson on here last week, and he was talking about being fair. We don't care about being fair. Our kids and our people need equity. There's $18 billion being spent every year. That's $18,000 million. That's $1 million 18,000 times. And Stu told you 1%, you pay taxes, we all pay taxes. 1% of that goes to people that are black and Asian and Latino and women. And the sad part is that out of that group, white women get half of the 1%. They're not even treating them right.
God bless you. Thank you for your call. You're on the Black Air.
Oh, greetings. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up and just comment about Lou, and I'm sure the heat that he's getting is a result of his exposure of this. Yes. And I wanted to know if there is any type of, I know you gentlemen are very involved in your work, but is there any type of an effort to try to pivot off of this knowledge and try to pull more people into this and bring people into a consciousness of how they can situate themselves to go to bat for some of this pot of money, particularly for the population groups that you're talking about. Okay. I mean, is there some way are you all interested in any way that we can organize ourselves to try to systematically take a look at this problem? Okay. And, Right. Okay, I'll say hang up.
Thank you. God bless.
Yes, thank you for that call. I want to respond to that by saying in 1968, President Lyndon B. Johnson met with his cabinet, Martin Luther King, and some prominent black leaders, and he came up with what's known as Section 3. What Section 3 was created for was low and very low income residents in the United States. Anytime there's any HUD money allocated to a contract, whether it's public housing, whether it's infrastructure being bridges, tunnels, whatever it may be, a percentage of that money goes to higher, low, and very low income residents. Our politicians are aware of this. They are not forcing these contractors to implement this. When you look at these potential jobs with prevailing wage for a laborer, non-skilled laborer, starting at $45 an hour, these are the type of positions that if we got some of these young men off of the streets and say, if you pull your pants up, you can get this job.
They're going to do it.
I bet you they will pull their pants up. Guarantee they will pull their pants up.
We've seen it.
And those are some of the things that we need to educate ourselves about. Section 3. Everybody listening, please educate yourself about Section 3. Go to the federal government HUD website. It's a long list on there detailing everything. Please familiarize yourself.
And also, we have a situation where several, particularly council members of New York City, and in some cases, some state senators and state assembly people have in recent weeks written to Comptroller Liu, written to the technology department, DeWitt, and others in order to find out what was going on, whether or not the information in Comptroller Liu's reports were accurate, and what did the agency intend to do to act on the results of Comptroller Liu's report.
We only have time for one more call. God bless you. Thank you for your call. You're on the Black Ear.
Thank you, and thanks for your guests. You know, they need a show for themselves to inform the community.
That's absolutely correct.
Gotta make room for them guys. Take care. God bless.
Thank you.
I remember that guy. I remember him too when we were on there, man. How do you?
You know, I'm gonna tell you something, brother. This is Brother Leroy venting. Y'all ain't difficult to have on any kind of show on. Nothing. I'm not talking about have a show. I'm not in that seat. But in the seat of a talk show host, there are other Negroes on this station who could bring y'all in. And I'm Alton Maddox. I go down the list. I say, what are they doing, man? And I listen to some of this stuff that's on. This is Brother Leroy talking. From my own, I listen to talk radio, and I listen to people that don't know jack about Jim.
I just want to say one thing, Brother Leroy. You know, the thing that we have to all recognize is that what they do is they use the media and they say, you can get a contract. Well, we're here to tell you after 25 years, you're not getting crap. You ain't getting it. And they ask all of the black people and the Latins and the women to be certified. They don't ask white men to be certified.
Hold on. We're going to take this last one. God bless you. Thank you for your call. You're on the Black Ear.
Yes, sir. Give thanks, Brother Leroy.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ross McPherson's widow. But I'd like to comment on what you're saying about the contracts. Christine Quinn is trying to make herself stand out like mayor material. We don't forget when she had millions of dollars in dead people's accounts. Now they're saying that she has set aside some money for teenagers or people to gangbangers. This is only a scam to get her into the mayor's seat. Christine Quinn does not like black people. She wouldn't even let a statue go out of the street naming for Sonny Carson. Will approve the one for Joe, that guy in the blackface, Jolson.
Al Jolson.
Al Jolson. She approved that in the theater district. We have to be careful. What they're saying about Lou is he hasn't done anything. They haven't proved anything on him.
Right.
There's a couple of people in his staff, and apparently they've not done anything either.
Right.
But they're going to trial. I suggest we walk around with signs and make them investigate Christine Quinn. Christine Quinn is trying to buy herself a mayoral seat, and she does not deserve it.
Got it, sister. Thank you for your call.
Yes, give thanks.
And I was going for that one last
call. It's very
call
clear,
that was
John.
coming.
It's very clear, Brother Leroy, that we are not part of the economic system. When you have an economic system that spends $17 billion a year and we only get 1%, and thanks to John Liu, and thanks to you for having John Liu on the air, because if you go back and look in history outside of Billy Thompson and John Liu, every mayor, every controller before them has been Caucasian, and none of them have given forth the kind of information that Billy Thompson started with and John Liu followed up with. And where we do not participate in the economic system, and we need to really understand that. That's why John Johnson, when he's telling you about the Section 3, he's telling you right. We are not part of the system unless we demand that the politicians start looking to make sure that we have equity and not talk this fair talk. We're trying to be fair with the contracts. There's no fair when the 99% of the contracts are going to taxpayers. That's your money. So if like Malcolm X said, we have been hoodwinked economically, and they took the economic Plymouth Rock and they've dropped it on our heads, and our kids are fighting out there for crumbs, and they don't have nothing, man. It's terrible, man.
The conclusion of this interview is, first of all, from my own observation, just $2 million of that contract. And I'm saying that don't take $10 million to do the wiring up at that place. I ain't even seen it. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I mean, because y'all been doing ninja stuff.
That's true.
Yes, we have.
And when I say that, ladies and gentlemen, they have been doing what the majors, Cablevision and Warner, have been doing for billions of dollars. They give it to you for a dime. All right. How do people? There are people in the housing, public housing, who would want the same system that these brothers have set up. How do they make contact with you, Brother Johnson, or you, Doug and Stu, in terms of hey man, how can we get this system in our building?
Well, they can reach out to me via email, which is jalex, which is ALEXJ 340 at AOL.com, or they can call me directly at my office, 347-726-3663.
347-726-3663. And just give that telephone number one more time.
347-726-3663.
And how do they make contact?
They can reach us at our website, ddpusa.org.
That's too fast, brother.
ddpusa.org. Or they can go to John's website, which is, what's your website again, John?
BSDCOP.org.
And your telephone number once again?
347-726-3663.
And ladies and gentlemen, but first of all, brothers, I want to thank you for coming in.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to have you black.
It's good to be back.
This thing, hey, boy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to WHCR and your support of WHCR. And as far as these brothers having access to other talk shows, call other talk shows, whether they're on this station or any other, and recommend that they make contact with these brothers who are at the grassroots of what's going on and what's not going on, and realize that the young brothers and sisters that we see on our streets are highly intelligent if we give them the opportunity to be so, and that the a little percent of stuff that's being doled out can hire scores of our young people right there in our community. Many thanks, many blessings on all of you. Stay tuned for Sister Stephanie and the only black talk show on the Black Ear with a black female out front.
Greetings. This is Honey from Harlem 411. Tune in to Harlem 411 Friday nights at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for information on health, education, housing, community events, and more. Harlem 411 serves information to you with the opportunity to call in with your questions. Harlem 411, produced to serve the community's needs. Let us serve you with information. Friday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Harlem 411.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Welcome to What's Going On. I'm your girl, Steph. I love sports. I love talking about everything from knockouts to big shots to Game 7 and game-changing plays. You need heart to win. That's right, heart. You'll think twice about everything you hear or see after my tape. Why? Because I'm changing the game. What's going on? I'll tell you. Sundays, 3 p.m. to 4:30 on WHCR 90.3 FM, New York. Well, here's my take. What's up, y'all? What's going on? That's my question, right? No, that's the name of my show. It's your girl, Steph. And as usual, I am grateful to be in the studio on this hot Sunday afternoon in the NYC. Somebody told me it rained. I never got wet, so I can't tell you what really happened. All I know, when I was walking into the building, it was hot, like that little short distance that you have to walk when you trying to get into the building, coming from like the curb. I thought, good God Almighty. So it's hot in New York. It's one of them hot summers like it used to be.